Okay, I want to know why the enable waiting room gets unenabled.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Waiting room is unenabled, did you say?
Well, I always set the waiting room up, and then you were here when I was here, which means it wasn't set up.
Can't help you there. I'm not a Zoom expert by any stretch of the imagination. Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
Hey, Eric. Susan, Susie, Mary Lou,
Hey.
Linda. Okay, one more minute and we're good to go. Get my little clock here. Okay, it's 5:30. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Shutesbury Selectboard to order for Tuesday, September 13th, 2022, and has been our process in the last at least couple of years. This meeting is being held via Zoom. So I am going to start out as we always do and just going through tonight's agenda, and then we'll move into the rest of the meeting. So Becky, yes.
I have an agenda item that needs correction.
Oh, okay.
I think it was on there for August 16th minutes, and it should be August 30th minutes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, I will change that. And just let me know as we go through this, if I know there was at least one addition to the agenda of an appointment that we needed to make this evening for
Catherine Hilton to the Eastern
Franklin Health District.
Correct.
What it is? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we'll just we'll fit that appointment in as time allows. It might be at the end of this evening. We have a pretty full agenda tonight. So after we have, as always, our public comment period, then we'll be reviewing the minutes of as corrected as of August 30th, 2022. Then at 5:45, we have a presentation or discussion and a possible vote on the electrical aggregation proposal from our energy committee. And I think Nate Hurd and Michael DiChiara will be here to answer questions. Then we have a couple of appointments to the recycling committee. After that, we have a police officer, a new police officer appointment. At 6:25, we have Marianne Antonellis, our librarian, joining us regarding a request for some additional ARPA funding for environmental site work at lot 032. After that, we'll spend a few minutes talking about the upcoming meeting with the Conservation Commission, which will happen on September 22nd. Then, I'm hoping our newest member for the building committee is able to join us this evening. She wasn't sure if she could come, and her name is Anna Novi. So if Anna is able to join us this evening, we will do that building committee appointment. We have town administrator updates and the vote on Catherine Hilton to be the representative to the Eastern Franklin Health District. Anything else that unexpected, Becky, that's come up?
No.
We need to do for this evening? Okay, so we'll go ahead. I'm going to try to keep us on schedule, and Melissa, if you'll great at kind of signaling to me if we're way over and I'm not noticing the time. So I appreciate that.
Melissa's clock thinks it's 9 o'clock tonight, so I'm not sure to count on her.
No, that's my clock says it's 9 o'clock.
No.
Behind you on the old grandfather clock.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
behind me, yes, we
Grandfather
won't watch
clock.
that. That one does. It doesn't,
No,
I don't think
okay,
it's
just
moved
check,
in
just
like,
checking.
10 years. Yeah,
All right,
that's not the one I'm looking at.
okay,
I have one of those that says 11 o'clock, and it's correct twice a day.
Exactly. The time is always right twice a day.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and open up for public comment, and I ask that anybody who wants to make a public comment, please use the raised hand feature, which is down below. I believe it's the reactions button that you press just to let us know if there's something, some public comment that you would like to make. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to reviewing the minutes from August 30th, which Linda has prepared. As many of you know, Linda's retired, but we haven't let her go yet. We haven't found a replacement. We are still looking for somebody. And I know Becky sent out an announcement. So Linda, thank you again for your willingness to continue to serve and bearing with us as we go through this search process. So do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of August 30th, 2022?
So moved.
second,
Is there any discussion, any additions, deletions? As usual, Linda, they're great minutes. Thank you for preparing them and getting them out in a timely way.
I second that too.
yeah, right, really.
You're welcome.
You can't leave.
You notice she's still here. Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes of August 30th, 2022, please signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker eye.
And Farrell, aye. So why don't we go ahead? I don't see my clock here.
It's
So
5:36.
Oh, okay, so we're ahead of schedule here. Why don't we go ahead and do the vote for Catherine Hilton? And I don't have the notes. I know, Linda, you had sent us a reminder about this. Can you just describe? Yeah, Becky, go ahead and describe what this is.
So this is representation into the district that the Board of Health belongs to, along with Irving and Montague, I think it is. And the health district hires the health agent, and which Claudia is currently the active health agent, but Noreen Pease, who had been the chair, was the representative for quite a while, and now Catherine, as the new chair, needs to be appointed as the representative to those meetings.
So this is an instance where she is, Catherine's already an appointed member of the Board of Health. But she's just, we just need to designate her to serve on this.
She's an elected member of the board.
Elected member. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, so do I hear a motion to appoint Catherine Hilton to the Eastern Franklin as our representative to the Eastern Franklin Health District?
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
stalker eye.
Farrell, aye. Okay, I see Nate is here, but Michael is not. Nate, I assume you want us to wait on the discussion for the I mean, this is just a discussion amongst the select board members. Do you want to wait on Michael, or you want to handle this on your own?
As the chair, I think it would be good if Michael were here.
Okay, sure.
He, has I think the ability to represent the committee as a whole a little
Okay.
bit better.
Okay, fine. All
Yeah,
right. Well,
I'm
we'll
sure
just.
he'll be here in a minute.
Okay. All right. So we will go ahead and wait on that. So Becky, we have the only other thing on the agenda which we could potentially move up is really town administrator updates. Are you prepared to give us some updates?
Well, I have only a few.
Okay.
This was an exceptionally short week for me.
So welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, really.
Yes, welcome back.
So I just want you all to know that the deeds, the claim deeds from Coles have been put together, and I just received them from Donna. So at our next select board meeting, we will actually be moving ahead with the transfer of the swap property, which is an exciting landmark after 7 or 8 years in the making.
I agree.
So, yes, that's a very significant landmark. Also, for those, just an update. I'm still the Friday before school started. I was able to do an energy audit, building envelope audit with the representative from New England, from National Grid. And that report should be to us by the end of the week, we are hoping, which will mean we're on track working with FERCog to get Green Communities grant application in. School apparently has opened without any hiccups, which is an exciting thing. We're having a new year where children are returning to school without masks. Town Hall itself, I have been appreciative of our continued mask policy here, but I think it needs yet again one more update by the select board. So at the next meeting, I'm going to bring forward another, trying to keep us in line with the Board of Health's policies. And the one aspect of returning to work that we need to be mindful of is the rebounding impact for people. So it's not always 100% once you're negative that you stay negative. And I've been working on language similar to the Board of Health that can reflect that in a new policy. As far as the wildlife at Town Hall, and I don't mean any of our volunteers, we spotted two. I was out back today with our new fire chief, and we each spotted 2 eagles. We think they might be bald eagles. They were majestic and soaring around and around a group of trees. And as you can tell, I'm stalling at this point because I don't have much more else to report.
Okay, just in terms of scheduling, maybe we could just talk about, the select board has a special meeting tomorrow night, it will be an executive session. So it will not be open to the public. We will be going immediately into executive session, open the meeting will be opened as a public meeting. Then we will be going into executive session. I believe it's stated, has to do with the personnel matter. And immediately at the end of that, it will be a joint meeting with another board. Yes.
Yep.
And immediately after that, we will be closing the meeting and not going into public session again. So just in case anybody's looking at the calendar and wondering, like, what's going on here? Why so many meetings? And the select board will be meeting again next Thursday, September 22nd, with the Conservation Commission. Do we have a time confirmed for that? Linda?
No,
Yeah, don't forget, we have a CPC meeting that night.
I know.
Wait,
I have.
okay.
I've already worked that out.
Okay.
Yeah, I have conflicting meetings, as does Linda. So I've asked that the Conservation Commission put us on the agenda for 8 o'clock, figuring the CPC meeting would not go more than an hour. And I will talk to Mateo about that to try to figure that out. So, but we have not heard back from the Conservation Commission in terms of timing.
no. And I just wanted to be clear on the meeting on Wednesday night, the select board meeting as a personnel issue. The minutes will stay private and will not be released as other executive session minutes.
Okay, good. Thanks for that. Okay, so I see that Michael DeCiara has joined us and Nate Hurd is here. And thank you for coming, Michael and Nate. I believe it was a meeting that I missed where you first, maybe you've been here a couple of times, talked about the electrical aggregation proposal from the Energy Committee, and have forwarded to us really good information. Thank you for that very clear both outline of steps and then frequently asked questions, and then included submitting to the select board a sample warrant article. So as I understand it, and I'm going to turn it over to you in a minute, that what the Energy Committee is requesting is that that the town consider the community choice aggregation program, and that as a part of that, that there needs to be an agreement by the select board to put it onto a town meeting warrant. We do anticipate that we'll have a town meeting at some point. Doesn't look like it's going to be fall, but kind of maybe more tipping into early winter anyway, sometime on the future, to deal with the elementary school roof and any other items that come up such as this, so that at that time we could entertain, if the select board choose to put it onto the warrant, opting in or adopting the community choice aggregation program that has been proposed by the Energy Committee. And the committee's done a lot of work. Really appreciate, again, how much detail you have submitted, and it will be, a great resource when you go to town meeting. So Nate or Michael, do one of you just want to kind of give us the really, broad brush on, again, on what the community choice aggregation program is?
Well, I'll just do a broad brush in response to what you said, and then leave it to Nate, I think, Rita. So I think you summarized it well. One of the documents that we shared was this timeline that was based on a fall town meeting. So the timeline dates would just get shifted. So accordingly, and where we left it after the first time we met with you was, you'll see from that timeline, like the first step in the process is for the select board to agree to put it on the town warrant. And then the next one is for town meeting to agree to begin the process, which, if you look at the cheat sheet, there's a whole bunch of steps after that. So it's really saying, yes, the town wants to begin the process, figuring out the players and the design and all that stuff comes later. So really where we had left it was asking the select board to make that decision if you wanted to go forward. And the key thing that's not on the timeline is that the committee is committed to, and I think we expressed it, just like happened with broadband. I think that's, for me, the sort of the stellar example. There was education and community engagement sessions to help people understand in advance of town meeting. So we didn't want to go public with any commitment saying there was going to be something on the warrant until the select board said, yes, we're supportive of that. So we're actively holding off on doing that in our town. We do have mentioned that we're looking into it, and that's the extent of it, because we are in fact looking into it. But until you guys make a decision, we're not going to proceed with what we see as a mandatory community engagement step.
Good.
And Nate, I don't know if you want to just encapsulate what community choice aggregation is.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, with the frequently asked questions document that we assembled, that really is based on sort of the discussions of ECAC as a whole. You know, every time we've talked about it, people have raised good questions. When we visited the select board last time, there were really helpful clarifying questions, and we tried to integrate that into this document. But yeah, in short, broad stroke description, community choice aggregation is a means for Shutesbury to leverage a group action to potentially accomplish two aims. First, increasing the options that individuals have within the community for their electrical source. And then in addition to that, having the option to increase the proportion of green electricity that they're receiving through just their routine service. And one of the things that was especially attractive about the enabling legislation for community choice aggregation is that there's a really large experience base across the state with other communities that have gone down this path. And as ECAC has looked into it more and more, there are just a lot of great case studies that we can borrow, including, you know, what are the rate structures that communities immediately around Shutesbury have been able to achieve through their own community choice aggregation implementations. So we wanted to bring this before the select board and the town as a whole, because we think that it provides an opportunity to present cost savings to some people who choose that. And it also makes it easier for townspeople to increase to hasten the transition to green electricity, you know, as we move in that direction as a state. So that's broad stroke, but yeah, we're actually pretty excited about it.
That's great. Yeah, as I read it, it appeared the two reasons for doing it were both potentially for end users to save, that there could be some cost savings, and also that we would be controlling or like saying this is where we want how we want the power generated, and so that if it was a greener greener method through wind or solar or whatever, that would appeal to people. And I guess the other piece that when I read in your Q&A and your other materials, that there is an opt-out feature if the end users, people don't want to participate, that they have the option of not participating.
Yeah, I would just respond to that, Rita, and say mostly Nate and I are here to answer questions, but in response to that, this program feels like as all-American choice as one can get. So one could choose at any point in time not to participate at all. And then if you participate, there'll be at least 3 choices of options, one of which is saving money. And then the other ones we have yet to design, but are about doing more green energy, however we decide as a town we want to do it. So there's choice across the board. It's not like you're in or out of one package. Even the package you're in has choices within it.
Okay, great. So Eric or Melissa, I know that there were questions that had come up earlier. I wanted to check in with both of you to see if you had any questions for Nate or for Michael. Now that you've had an opportunity to take a look at all this additional material.
I don't have any questions. You answered my one about the community action, the discount that low income people get if they're part of community action fuel assistance. So thank you. I appreciate you getting that information together.
The one question I had relates to, and with sort of jumping the gun, so to speak. But I mean, what are the options? What will the options be? I mean, I'm sure there'd be options for, like it is now, nuclear power or whatever. But I mean, will there be options for industrial solar, or will there be options for only woods? What's the word? Non-woods clear cut solar. I mean, when will we decide that?
So Nate, can I take that? So it is farther down. And so if you just look at the timeline that we provided, if you were just say you decided today that yes, you want to go forward, it wouldn't be until spring of 2024. And it's a select board. So ECAC would make a recommendation, I think, in consultation with the energy broker that the town hires through a bidding process. And then that recommendation would get approved by the select board. So I think there's lots of discussion. I know we've talked about it at ECAC, but we haven't identified the broker yet. And I think part of what we're committed to in terms of the community engagement is to find out where people are at. And so we can design a continuum of choices that reflect what people want. So clearly there's saving money will definitely be one. So you can have an option, just get cheaper electricity than you currently do. And so what we've discussed is, do you have 2 or 3 other options? One is saving money and meeting the green standard, but then doing it more. We have talked about having energy generation that meets sort of the green standard for the state, but more of it, which includes industrial solar. We've also talked about having it that doesn't, cut down forests and use ag land. But I think the energy broker is sort of a reality tester. They're the ones who are in the market. So they're going to be able to say, that's a practical goal or an impractical goal. And if you do this, this is how it affects the price. Like all those details, we don't know. And that's why I think once we get the energy broker, they're the people who have the finger on the pulse. And the market's changing is my assumption as well, rapidly. Does that answer
So
that?
that
Yeah,
comes,
that's fine.
and so those decisions come back to the select board after the energy broker has done his or her work. Is that correct?
Yeah, and in between, there's the involvement of both DOER and Department of Public Utilities. So it sort of goes from our stuff to the state and then back to us again. But as far as I understand, the energy broker is really our guide and our interface. So they're the ones who can tell us what's achievable based on our goals. And the other thing I would say, because I see Gail raising her hand, is the energy survey that we did, this summer was really informative. I mean, we had a 20+ response rate. And so if we use that and we use community forums, we're going to get a pulse of what people are looking for. So it's not like 7 people coming up with something, or even the 3 of you coming up with something.
Okay, before I take any questions, I want to make sure that Melissa and Eric have had a chance to, if there's anything else you want. We have a few more minutes. So Melissa and Eric, are you okay with us taking some questions?
I'm okay, yeah.
I think Mary Lou is first and then Gail. So Mary Lou, did you have a question?
Hi, yes. I'm very curious to hear, like on a personal resident level, what would be a cost savings example of this proposal that Michael and Nate are speaking about? That's one. And two, where can we find and read this as you three on the select board have read? Where can we, the public, find that proposal? Thank you.
You're on, Nate.
Sure. So on the cost savings front, some communities have gone just for that option. So the town of Hatfield offers only one community choice aggregation option, and they are able to deliver a rate that is below what National Grid and Eversource offer, because they're moving as a group. So where we found information about what these different rate structures look like under different communities CCAs is from the state. They call it municipal. If you Google municipal choice aggregation in Massachusetts.
I'm sorry, Nate, may I ask you to explain that word aggregation? I'm sorry.
Oh, sure.
I don't know what you're meaning. Are you talking about our electricity and like hooking into our own service? Because that'd be excellent. That'd be a good way to get solar in town.
Yeah,
Okay.
I apologize for being a little off track. So the basic concept is your utility bill has two parts of it.
And I'm just going to caution you, we only have a few minutes. So,
okay.
This is a fairly complex subject. So I would just, if you can make it brief, and we will post the materials, Mary Lou. Everything that the select board has received in advance will be put up. And I assume on the Energy Committee's site, right? You'll put everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So it will be there on the Energy Committee.
Thank you.
So Nate, why don't we turn to let Gail Fleischaker?
I wanted to respond to Eric's question. Who makes the decisions and what are the options? So with the guidance from our broker, we, the committee, can recommend to the select board 6, 7, 8 different options. We want solar at 10%. We want solar at 30%. We at 50%. All geothermal, all wind, and then send that out for bid. Then the bids will come back with price tags attached with a rate for each one of those. And at that point, the select board can choose 3 or 4 options to present to residents in town, who can still choose among those 3 or 4. But the options will be chosen ultimately by the select board based on the rate that comes back in the bid.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. So I know that that the Energy Committee submitted some sample warrant article language. I'm assuming you're not asking us to vote on this tonight, but rather just confirmation that we want you to move forward, and then that the article language would get finalized as we get closer to town meeting. Is that?
Yes,
correct?
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, Nate found the sample language that a lot of towns have used. And so, it's always a mystery of like, okay, if we put it on the warrant, what are we putting on? So it seemed like to say, it's this paragraph or something like it. Clearly it has to get past muster with Donna and make sure that it reflects what we want. But I think we were offering it up to say it's pretty generic, because it's the way I thought about it when I read that is at town meeting, there's the standard warrant article about giving the select board the ability to accept gifts or grants or whatever. We don't know what grants we're applying for, but we're saying if we apply for a grant, we're letting the select board accept it. It's a similar kind of genericness that we're saying we want to go forward, and we're empowering the town to do that process. I think it's sort of that nature.
Okay, so we're not voting on warrant article language this evening, but rather just on confirmation, because you're looking to, the next steps then are you to begin a public education process.
Correct.
So, okay, all right, that, Melissa, Eric, that sound reasonable?
It does.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so then do I hear a motion in support of the community choice aggregation it's a program, right? Or initiative?
Sure, process.
A process indicating the select board's support for moving forward with an education process, and then looking ahead to a town meeting article. It's putting an article on the town meeting warrant.
So moved.
Second.
Linda, was that really too convoluted? You can say yes. You can simplify it, just get the gist. So the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
And Farrell, aye. Thank you, Michael and Nate, and for all of the Energy Committee, Gail, for all of your hard work. And it makes our job so much easier when we have such a detailed and clear presentation. And I think it will make the education process for what's a fairly complicated concept for people to understand. But having all of this already is a great start.
Great. Well, thank you all. We'll send you the invite when we get a date.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda, we have 2 appointments to the recycling committee, and I don't know, it doesn't look like either of those individuals have joined us. But Becky, do you want to just indicate kind of, did you get something from the recycling?
I apologize being out last week. I thought Meryl usually rounds people up, but maybe she was unaware that we put it on the agenda. So we have 2 new candidates from the recycling committee that we'd like, even in their absence, if the board would consider appointing them. I know the recycling committee is always busy and has more work, and so they will make good use of their volunteers. So the first person is Andrea Rogers, and the second is Mary Glavin.
And they were, they met or discussed their
Yeah, they
appointments.
attended the last recycling committee meeting, and by the end, I don't think they had to twist their arms very much to get them to join. So it seems like a good fit.
Okay, great. It's always good news to have volunteers. And as you point out, the recycling committee does a lot of really good work in town here. So do I hear a motion to appoint Andrea Rogers to the recycling committee?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
And Farrell, aye. And do I hear a motion to appoint Mary Glavin to the recycling committee?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
And Farrell, aye. All right, great. Thank you. We will let them know that they have been appointed. We have a new police officer, and we have a great turnout of our police force this evening. We were scheduled for 6:15. Is there anybody else, Kristen, that is not here who, if we were to go ahead and take up this agenda item, anybody else who's not here that you expected to be here?
Green light to go, Miss Rita.
Okay, sounds good. I like that Miss Rita part. I'll tell you a story about that later on.
Okay.
We're not on camera. Okay. All right, so we have a candidate, Devin Pelletier, who I believe was interviewed. And Eric, did you participate in that?
Yes, I did.
In the interview? Okay, great. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Kristen, and then we'll hear from Devin, I hope.
Okay.
About his background and interests. So if you want to just introduce him, that would be great.
Sure, that's great. So just so everyone understands why we're here, we have been working on filling the positions and the full-time positions. I did put out a job opportunity out to various different venues to be able to see if there was any interest. And I got quite a few resumes, but one stood out. He is here with us this evening. I would like everyone to meet Devin Pelletier. Devin was working for AIC in Springfield. He has quite a bit of experience in not only campus security police officer experience, but he also has some supervisory experience. He's just left a position as the administrative sergeant at his job to come to the town of Shutesbury. So I will then turn it over to you guys for questions. Everyone meet Devin. I think he's going to make a great team asset to the team.
Okay, so Devin, maybe you could take a few minutes and just tell us kind of in your own words why you are interested in working in Shutesbury. What is it about the community that attracted you, and a little bit of just about your background for people who have not had the time or ability to take a look at your resume.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction, Chief Burgess, and thanks everyone for having me here today. I've worked in private policing for a while. I did also worked at Bay State Medical Center in Springfield as an officer for quite a while, and I've worked at AIC for the past 3 years. And I really just want to go into a municipality. I'm more into the community policing aspect, and I feel like that will be the municipality is the best place to do that.
And can you tell us a little bit about how you found out about Shutesbury? And
yeah, so I saw the one of the letters that Chief Burgess put out, and I had emailed her my resume and cover letter, and I liked the size of the town. I really liked the department, and it just seems like it's going to be an awesome place to work.
okay, Melissa.
Rita, if I can add something, I did something a little different this time. We do like to do the panel interviews, which we conducted, but the one thing that I did differently this time is after he had his interview, I said, let's take a drive around town. So we went around town. I showed him some highlights of the town, the school, Lake Wyola, things like that. And really, so he got to see what the town looks like and the layout of the town, and introduced him to some people we know in town. So he was able to make a thoughtful decision by actually seeing it and experiencing it for a period of time.
Okay, great, thanks, Kristen. So I just want to open it up for questions. Melissa, if you have any questions, or Eric, I know you sat in on the interview. If you have any observations or anything you want to share, that would be great.
I can just say he was a fantastic candidate at the interview. So that's all that says it all as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, Melissa, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just have one question. You said something about community policing. What passion, what drives your passion in that part of the policing tasks and job?
Well, we have a big student population at AIC. About 1,000 kids live on campus. So we do a lot of community policing efforts on campus there. And my passion towards it is I grew up in a smaller town, and I like to, help be like a community caretaker. I like to be in that role and like to help people in, any way I can. And I think I'll be able to do that more effectively in a municipality than in a campus setting.
Okay. Good. Thank you. I'm curious if you Devin, if you'd had an opportunity to meet with the other officers and kind of your impression about the department, what your impression is about the department.
I did have a chance to meet with some of the other officers, and my impression is that it's very close-knit department, and I like that about it. So I think, it's just going to be a great place to work. It's very close-knit. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anything else? Any of the other officers want to jump in? Thank you all for being here tonight. It's a great show of support. Okay, so hearing none, we will go ahead and move into a vote. So do I hear a motion to appoint Devin Pelletier as a Shutesbury police officer?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. So Devin, congratulations. We look
Welcome.
forward to seeing you out and about. And thank you again to all of our officers for your hard work.
Thank you very much.
I know it's been a busy time.
It has been. And thank you so very much for seeing us tonight and appointing this new fine officer. You will do the town proud. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, we are scheduled for 6:25 to hear from Marianne Antonellis, our librarian. I assume we can go ahead. Is there any, Eric, Melissa, are you okay if we just go ahead with the report from Marianne?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. And Melissa, you good? Okay, so Marianne, we're going to turn over the floor to you just as a way of introduction. The select board received a, I have it here somewhere. I don't know the title. Oh, it's a lot 032 background piece, site assessment background and current status that Marianne has been taking the lead on addressing a number of the issues with lot 032, which I think everybody here understands is the town-owned parcel on Leverett Road where we are going to be building our new library. So Marianne, I know part of this is that you're coming to us for from some additional funding for environmental testing there, but maybe before we launch into that, I don't know, I and Eric and Melissa pipe in here. for me, I think it would be good, having read this report, to kind of hear in Marianne's own words, sort of what we need to be focusing on right now, and kind of where you see things, where things stand with regard to Lotto 32.
I just also, Rita, want to thank her for putting together that historical document. It was very helpful. I appreciate the time and effort.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you did a lot of work that none of the rest of us could do, just pulling that all together, going back in history here. So that was really helpful. Thank you.
I had done a lot of this when I wrote the grant application for the Small Library Pilot Project grant. So I was familiar with all of the documents and the work done so far. And then I've been sort of in the middle of it. So so it's easier to do when you're actually the one doing it. So I'll just give you an overview of the report that I wrote, and then go into what we need to do next. So we've done a lot of work at Lotto 32. In 2010, we did the first environmental transaction screen, which is just sort of a study of the former uses of the site. And at that time, that was done by Fuss and O'Neill. And at that time, they identified potential environmental concerns, and those were the former underground storage tanks and some historic dumping. The tanks were found to have been removed under proper procedures, with being monitored and testing. And then after that further research, there was still the question of historic dumping that required further investigation. In 2011 and 2012, so late 2011 and then in 2012, Cold Spring Environmental Consultants was brought on by the town, and Cold Spring did pretty extensive testing. They installed test borings and monitoring wells adjacent to those two underground storage tanks, and adjacent to the terminus of the floor drain in the garage, and adjacent to the debris pile behind the garage. The soil and groundwater samples were tested for all kinds of things: volatile petroleum hydrocarbons, extractable petroleum hydrocarbons, volatile organic compounds, and PCBs. Most of those, everything was negative except in one location. So there was a drum with oil in it, and that drum was disposed of properly and tested when it was disposed of, and it tested positive for PCBs. So Cold Spring tested the monitoring well near that drum, and then the soil under that drum, and that did test. It did have trace amounts of that water test from that monitoring well near the drum did have trace amounts of PCBs. It was 0.544 parts per billion, and the reportable level is 0.50 parts per billion. So, and all other soil samples were negative. Those results were reported to DEP, and then DEP agreed with Cold Spring Environmental's plan of doing further testing, so gathering water samples from the monitoring wells and a soil sample from below the drum. And those tests did not show reportable levels of DEP, so the tests couldn't be duplicated. The DEP also required that all of the private drinking water wells within 500 feet of that drum be tested. And those samples were collected from 5 private residences in the highway department, and that none of them showed any signs of PCBs from Lotto 32. So there was still the garage with the underground floor drain, with the floor drain and the piles of debris that the DEP recommended they recommended taking down the garage and removing the piles of debris. So then in August of 2021, the garage was demolished and the debris piles were removed. And we hired a licensed site professional, O'Reilly, Talbot, and Akun, and they did soil borings in the location of the garage. So what DEP said to me was to dig underneath the garage, and then behind the garage, and then anywhere we would likely be excavating during a construction project. And then DEP said to Becky to do soil borings where those debris piles had been. So 10 soil borings were done. 8 of them around the front of the property. One of those locations just happened to be a place where a debris pile was. And then at 2 locations further back, one near where the monitoring well is, and then the location currently known as B9, which is the site of the former Air Force Tower. We did a soil boring back there, not because the Air Force Tower had been there, but because there was a debris pile there that the town removed. All of the soil borings were tested for all of those same things: VOCs, PCB, BCPs, whatever it is, and all the petroleum hydrocarbons. And 9 of the 10 samples tested negative, and then that 10th sample back at B9 tested positive. It had a reportable level of VOCs. And it was just at the reportable level. So it was 100 parts per whatever. I didn't write that down. But it was just at the reportable level. If it was
100.
Okay, go ahead. 100.
100 was the reportable level, and it was
If it was 99, it wouldn't have been reportable. So at the same time, we had OTO take a groundwater sample from the town's monitoring well at lot 032. It was also tested for VOCs, PCBs, and PFAS, none of which were detected. But we had this issue, the town had this issue with B9 and this reportable level of VOCs. So, and it was chemicals commonly found in gasoline is the way that the LSP described it. So in the fall and winter of 2022, Becky researched the history of the removal of the radio tower and the underground storage tank, and learned that when the tower was removed and the underground storage tank was removed, that they removed 100 tons of contaminated soil. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers reviewed all of the documentation, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers doesn't think that it was actually a reportable find, and they recommended either not reporting to DEP as was required or retracting the report, but the town has decided to go ahead and do further testing.
Marianne, can I just stop you there?
Yeah.
We did, even though it was right at the amount, it was reported to DEP.
Yes.
And then it had got some designation from DEP as a result of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was reported to DEP in accordance with the reporting requirements. And Becky can tell us what that designation is. So we've hired another licensed site professional, Fuss & O'Neill, to do a desktop review of all of the environmental assessments that we've done, everything we know about Lot 032 so far, and make recommendations about what our next steps should be, and also to do the further testing that we know needs to be done at B9 in order to be in compliance with our reporting to DEP. So in order to do the testing around B9, it's likely that we'll have to take some small trees down. And the Conservation Commission was concerned that they wanted to make sure that there weren't wetlands back there. So they asked that we do a wetland delineation. So And you remember this, you approved all of this. So we've had the wetlands delineated, that delineation is done. And it's under review by the Conservation Commission now. They've done a site visit and we have a meeting scheduled with them next week. So now what needs to be done is, while there aren't wetlands around Bore 9, there are wetlands between the road and Bore 9. And we'll have to cross wetlands to get to Bore 9. And then in this review of all the work that's been done so far, we've discovered that there was a floor drain that needs some additional testing in order to be in compliance with the DEP's underground injection control program, which is a program that they have when you're closing floor drains in garages. So Fuss and O'Neill has proposed doing an RDA so that we can get to Bore 9 and do the testing. There's also some testing near the site of the garage, some wetlands near the site of the garage. And there will have to be work done within the buffer zone. There'll have to be some test pits dug there. So Fuss and O'Neill is proposing doing a request for determination of applicability with the Conservation Commission so that we can move forward on that work. And then Fuss and O'Neill is also proposing doing an ANRAD to sort of confirm the mapping of the wetlands and have it so that as we go forward doing further work over the next 3 years, we have a firmly agreed upon wetlands delineation. And then they're recommending test pits, up to 8 test pits that our highway department would dig. So these wouldn't be borings. They would be test pits dug with a backhoe around the garage so that we can be, and then soil samples could be taken and tested for all of those same things, plus, so the VOCs, the PCBs, the extractable hydrocarbons and the other kind of hydrocarbons, and a slate of heavy metals. And that this additional work for the 3 different pieces of additional work with, being able to satisfy all the requirements of the Conservation Commission and have a well-documented delineation so that we can continue to do work there and know if we need to be in the buffer zone or if we know if we're outside the buffer zone. And then the RDA to get back to B9 and to do that work around the garage. And then the actual testing for all of those things around the garage are an additional $16,970.
So just to be clear, so to date, we have allocated about $22,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this is out of ARPA money. So this is an additional 19.
This is an additional 16,970. So some of what's in this proposal, you already appropriated the money for the wetland reporting, or you agreed to the money for the wetland reporting, but they just hadn't put it in. That had been an agreement that they did with me by email, but they hadn't put it in the contract. So they've just added it into the contract. So
can you give me because I was looking at this page in the Fuss and O'Neill, which, so it's not 19,470.
No, it's 16,970.
16,970.
Yeah, and let me do my math again.
So that netted out the 2,500, is that right, for the
Right.
wetland delineation? Okay. Right, because we already allocated that $9,000.
That's right. But it just hadn't got put into a, I had a written email exchange with them, but it hadn't made it into this contract. So they've just been adding everything onto the one contract.
I see.
Okay. 16,970. Okay.
So, I just had a couple of questions about some of the items here, and then I want to give Eric and Melissa. So the testing, there'd be all this additional testing. First, we got to get to B9, right? And get over the wetlands. And then additional testing at the front of the site. And then there was an item here that you didn't mention, residual debris at lot 032.
Oh, so was that in the report?
Yeah,
So-
it was
yeah.
number 7, consult with licensed site
Okay.
professionals about
Right,
residual.
okay. So I spoke to them on the phone about the debris and they didn't see any debris that was concerning to them. They weren't, when I visited with the licensed site professionals on lot 032, we weren't looking specifically for debris. They said that they would only expect to to look at the debris if the Board of Health raised concerns about it. And this was based on some pictures that Miriam had sent, and then what I said to them, and then what the wetland scientists who did a walkthrough told them on Saturday. So they right now they don't feel like there's any implications from the debris that is on the site. Since there were 3 big debris piles that Becky already arranged to have removed last summer under guidance from DEP. So that's what they've said so far about the debris piles.
So Melissa and Eric, questions? I have a couple more, but I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask any
Melissa?
questions. I guess my question then, and then I'll let you guys
Go ahead.
is you're saying that the Board of Health has jurisdiction over any debris? I read stuff that people are putting out there, and I just, was curious. And maybe, Becky, can you address that about the Board of Health jurisdiction?
Yeah, typically they're brought in whenever there's a concern about the health and welfare of the community, whether it be a pig farm that's gotten out of control, or a house that somebody they can't ever throw anything away, and so you've got trash everywhere. If that Board of Health can determine whether it needs attention or not, and it typically will go to their health agent for confirmation. But it's the Board of Health. The Conservation Commission, their jurisdiction is wetlands.
Okay. So Melissa, I'm sorry, I think I cut you off there.
And I was just gonna say, I didn't have any specific questions, although now that Becky answered that question, is it something that we would alert the Board of Health? We just want them to kind of glance over to just ensure that there's nothing there? Do we want to do due diligence there, or what would be the process?
The Board of Health actually came on the site visit
did.
on
Okay.
Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so they already are aware of it, and if they
Yeah,
had
and they
concerns,
said that, so Kat Hilton came and she said that she didn't see anything.
Okay.
She had a small baggie, and she picked up some pieces of broken glass. And there are pieces of broken glass, and she filled the baggie. So the one site that Miriam had expressed concern about, it looked to me like somebody could take a rake and, and like a bucket, and if they were wearing, and just wear gloves and pick stuff up. It's one of the sites where the highway department had cleaned stuff up.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I just didn't want to make sure they were brought in if they needed to be. Okay, thank you, Marion.
And my comment would be that in general, it seems to me the town has voted to support a library and to make it happen. And thank you, Mary Ann. This is very good information. And it seems to me that there's a general agreement among everybody here that we want to do everything we can to make sure that we leave no stone unturned, as they say, or whatever, for testing and whatever. But there's no desire, malicious intent, or anything to do anything here that's wrong, that's trying to ram this through and whatever. We want to do it right. And I think that whatever mistakes we have made as a town, if any, I mean, they're behind us. The thing now is like we've just got to go ahead. But go ahead, not blindly. Go ahead with licensed site professionals, people who have licenses and they're official and all that, and the DEP and so forth. Then it sounds like we've articulated our plan here that we should be doing, and we should do it as soon as we can. And the other point I would make is that, even if for some reason this was not for the library, this site, this is all work that has to be done anyway. This town we have to clean up lot 032 for whatever reason. Hopefully the library, that would be my vote, but it has to be done. That's all.
There was one other thing that that our LSP said about the debris pile. So the one area that Miriam pointed out that she was concerned about, it happens to be in a wetland. And so DEP had advised us to do soil borings anywhere we removed a debris pile. So we did a soil boring at that site that Miriam was concerned about. And it tested negative for PCBs and VOCs and the two different kinds of hydrocarbons. So we've already done some investigative work there beyond just cleaning it up.
So Mary Ann, I know that there's been contact with DEP. So who's taking the lead now on, is that the folks from Fuss and O'Neill?
Yes. Yeah, they're in contact with DEP, both with with two different offices, the underground injection control program and the waste management folks that Becky and I have been talking to since, for years.
And what's your sort of take on?
So they are, they're just, so they have been in contact with DEP to make sure that the work they're proposing is the work that needs to be done. And DEP has approved their proposals. If this funding is approved, then they will, there's an application that goes into the underground injection control program. So they'll start filling out that, it's a permit. So they'll start filling out that permit once they have the funding. But they have, they've been in consultation with them, and so that they know that the work that they're proposing and the testing that they're going to do is going to satisfy the requirements, so that we're in compliance.
And not that we weren't in touch with DEP prior to this. I know that there were a lot of discussions that that Becky, because it was during the last couple of years when there was a lot of interaction with DEP around both removal of the building and also of any debris that was there. I see Becky nodding your head at that. So yeah, my sense has been that there's a lot of discussion kind of floating out there about Lot 032. So some not 100% accurate and with different motivations. So having, at this stage, kind of this update and preparing, I think it positions us very well for our meeting with the Conservation Commission next week, where we'll be talking about kind of how we're moving forward. But I also, everything that I've seen so far from Fuss and O'Neill appears that they have a very good handle on the issues. Having had them do the wetlands delineation, I think made a tremendous amount of sense, because for those of you who don't know, there are wetlands on this property that fall under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. And I think they're not wetlands that are all necessarily would be designated as part of the State Wetlands Protection Act, but because we have a very broad bylaw in Shutesbury that we have a lot of wetlands to deal with and address. But the key here is at least, we have a deadline. Maybe I'm moving into the conversation with the Conservation Commission, but so I'm going to stop there and just see Eric or Melissa, if you have any questions. Becky, I see your hand. We're not having any public discussion. This is just a select board discussion this evening. So. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to alert you, Rita, that Anna Cook joined the meeting.
Oh, okay, great.
The one question I have is what, and I guess this is for Mary Ann, what will we end up with theoretically? I mean, will we end up with a certificate from the DEP that says everything's cool, or what do we end up with? How do we know that, what stops everything from fomenting here?
Right. Well, so I don't think we get a certificate from the DEP, but we will have followed the proper procedure and done our due diligence to test the site in the places that it makes sense to test the site, and we'll know that we didn't find any PCBs or VOCs or extractable hydrocarbons or the other kind of hydrocarbons, or PFAS or any of those things, and or heavy metals, or we'll find some gasoline and we'll do a limited extraction, or we'll find some, but given the extensive testing that's been done now, 3 rounds of testing, we have a lot of information that there aren't VOCs or PCBs or the different types of hydrocarbons. So what we'll know is we've done our due diligence. We'll be in compliance with the DEP's underground injection control program, which is required because of the floor drain that was in the garage. And we'll know that all the places we tested didn't have, hazardous chemicals. So we'll be able to rest easy knowing that we've really done our due diligence to make sure the site is safe.
But I guess I'm only concerned that I think that's all great information. I would just like to see that written down somewhere, like Fuss and O'Neill will do a report saying, oh, blah, 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 this happened and this is okay, or the DEP will, or somebody will do a report that says that we're okay.
There will be records on the DEP website that we've satisfied the different requirements.
Okay, cool.
So,
that's good. That's good.
So, or if we find something else, then there'll be next steps. And then our licensed site professional will, given all of the information as they continue to review everything so far, and as we do this follow-up testing, then they'll recommend all of the next steps. And then the DEP will have records of this. So if we've done our due diligence and we've confirmed that there aren't any hazardous chemicals that are, that are of concern on Lot 032, then if people raise questions, we can refer them to the DEP.
Right. I guess that's my point ultimately. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to just do something a little unusual and just move a vote up for the building committee, because we have Anna Cook with us, who is on a very tight schedule, has 2 little kids that she's dealing with this evening on her own, whose bedtime is probably just about now. So she was able to join us. So I wanted to, if you can unmute yourself, Anna. So this is the fifth of the 5 appointments to the new town building committee. For those of you who don't know, we already have 4 members. We're hoping the committee already has some things we need for them to be reviewing. So the 5th member would be Anna Cook, if she's approved this evening. And I have crossed paths with Anna primarily in the past with her work with Pioneer Valley Habitat for Humanity, which I believe you were chair of their board and really active with Habitat for Humanity. And Anna is the co-owner of Integrity Construction.
Development and construction.
Based in Amherst. Lives in Shutesbury with her husband and 2 children, and I think would be, a really fantastic candidate for the building committee. So, Anna, if you just want to give us really briefly, you don't need to go into any great detail, kind of your interest and background.
Sounds good. Thank you. You mostly covered it. I started working at Integrity when I was 20, pushing a broom around and just doing what people told me to do. So prior to this meeting, I was asked if I could send in my resume, and I really haven't written one since I was in college. But I've done everything there, from work as a carpenter's helper on site, project manager, and I'm the co-owner. We work all over the valley. We do mostly residential renovation, remodeling, new construction. We do some light commercial, like we did the 3-story mixed-use building in North Amherst, the trolley barn where Jake's restaurant used to be and the lift is. We did the Adkins North renovation, which is now Provisions, and did a commercial build out of one of the spaces behind Adkins. So that's kind of my working background. I'm a licensed construction supervisor, have the EPA RRP lead paint training, OSHA 10. That's what comes to mind, kind of whatever I've needed, I've just sort of gotten over the years. And yeah, I'm excited to join the committee and hope that my background can be helpful.
And Anna is a co-owner of a women-owned business, so it's very would be great to have you on the committee. So any questions, Melissa or Eric, for Anna?
Sign her up.
Quickly.
Well, just
Before she changes her mind.
So we're hoping to have a meeting really soon. We have some a number of things we want to do with regard to town buildings, and kind of most immediately deal with issues with the elementary school, which you're probably very familiar with.
Yep. I have a 1st grader, and I'll have a kindergartner next year who'll be starting.
Okay, great. So do I hear a motion to approve Anna Cook to the town building committee?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. So stay tuned, Anna. There'll be a meeting scheduled soon, which will be the first meeting. So you'll be coming in on the ground floor. And thank you for making time this evening.
Oh,
in
sure.
your busy evening.
That's fine.
For joining us.
Kids are
Okay.
watching an animal documentary. They're good.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. and welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so I want to kind of get back, and sorry to break in there, but so Mary Ann, that was a really great detailed report. Will this get posted somewhere? Where would we find it? Do you want the town? I mean, maybe the select board should put it out. Do we have
We can put it on the select board page, or I'm not sure which is most appropriate. Mary Ann, what do you think? You're muted.
That seems fine. you know, because it really is about the whole history of the site and.
Right. It's not just a library sort of issue. You took this on for us, and we really appreciate all of your work and in dealing with Fuss and O'Neill and DEP. So we're most appreciative. So I guess, Becky, we could put it on the select board
Page,
page.
yep.
And then if anybody asks, they can just be directed there, and it will become part of the the documentation for tonight's minutes. Susie, did you have something you wanted to? No? Okay. Okay, so just as a follow-up to this, we have
So can I just interrupt and say that I think you need to vote for the funding. Are you gonna?
You're
vote?
right.
Yes, that's right.
Good-
That was
good
the one
thinking.
thing we needed to do.
Yeah, I was just gonna go right over that, Mary.
Okay, all right. I mean,
Okay,
if we want to do the work, we have to have the funding.
We kind of
Okay. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah,
I thought
okay.
we'd get off easy tonight.
No.
All right, so I just want to make sure the amount is right. It's $16,970. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. So do I hear a motion to approve $16,970 in ARPA funds to cover the additional environmental services work for lot 032?
So moved.
Second,
Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Darrell, aye. Mary Lou, I see your hand, but we're not having any public discussion. We're moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is to just go over our plan for our meeting with the Conservation Commission. So as I said,
Rita, excuse me, perhaps you can direct me to where my question might be answered?
What is your question?
Since you're not taking it here. I had a question about the ARPA funds.
why don't you send us something in writing, Mary Lou?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just address that to the select board.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we have a meeting scheduled for next Thursday, the 22nd with the Conservation Commission. We still don't have a time, but I have requested 8 o'clock. So I hope that works for you, Melissa and Eric. I have some ideas about what we should be talking about with the Conservation Commission. I think everybody's aware that they issued us an enforcement order. I don't feel like we need to really go there at this point. I think we are moving on and we are addressing their issues. But what I would like to do that evening is talk about how we ensure communication and cooperation, because I think, there have been, at least I certainly have had a feeling that has not always been, that our communication and our working together has not been really always smooth. And I think we are two town boards, two town committees that we should be looking towards better ways of communicating and cooperating. The library, the report that Marianne just prepared set out a bunch of steps, next steps with that Fuss and O'Neill is going to be taking the lead on. we need the Conservation Commission to be working with as much, I don't want to say haste, but to be pushing this forward, and not to delay, because number one, if we do have an environmental issue at the back where the boring number 9 is, we want to get that resolved. And the longer it sits there, doesn't get resolved. And we need the Conservation Commission to approve Fuss and O'Neill getting access to that B9 area so that they can do the additional soil borings. And were they going to put another well back in there, Mary Ann, too? Was that the plan? Okay. So they have to cross a wetland in order to do that. So that will take we will need the Conservation Commission's approval. I think, one other thing that has been of concern to me is getting all of the questions and issues out on the table as soon as possible. As Eric kind of stated, we want to keep moving on this. We have a library to build. The town has overwhelmingly voted for a library, and so I feel like we are doing our part in dealing with DEP and dealing with the issues. But if there are any outstanding issues, it's not okay if it's like a drip, drip, drip. Let's put everything out there and then figure out how we're doing this and how we're working cooperatively. So that's kind of my sense of where we need to go with the Conservation Commission, but Eric, Melissa, you might have some other thoughts about.
I would say it was very well said. I mean, that was yes, I agree. I mean, it's yeah, we want to be working. I mean, what I was trying to say was that all the officials in this town, whether we're elected or appointed, we should be working toward resolving the issues and building a library. That's what the town wants. And whatever we have to do that, no one's trying to sleaze something through that's not the substandard testing or whatever it could be, but we just have to do it, and we have to work together to do it.
I agree. And not fight each other on it.
Right.
No, yeah. Do it.
Point fingers.
To our best ability, right? To our best ability. None of us are experts in any of this, right? So,
right.
We need and bring in people when we need to, but we need to work together. I agree.
Yeah, as I said,
I hope you don't mind me interrupting. There is a tornado potentially in Irving. I don't know if you've noticed the sky, but I've just gotten a warning on my phone.
So hearing the noise out there. Thank you.
Notice how dark my room has just gotten, and that's
yeah.
The weather.
I noticed that.
No.
Yeah. Just
I feel like we're in really good hands with Fuss and O'Neill, and that as Eric said, we need to resolve any issues at Lot 032, even if we weren't putting a library there. So this has been kind of sitting out there, and we want to get it addressed, and we need everybody's cooperation. So I guess that's my message for the Conservation Commission, and that we'll submit this report to them, to Mary Ann. Okay, so that they can see kind of what all the next steps are.
Okay, I'll send it to them.
Okay, that would be great. And then an indication that the additional ARPA funds were approved by the select board this evening for the Fuss and O'Neill work. Or we could do it if you want us to do it. No, you're okay.
No, I'll do it right now.
Okay, great. Okay, anything else? Any other questions for our upcoming meeting?
No, I think if we stay with that focus, I think we're good.
I guess one other thing that I had thought about is asking them in advance if there are any outstanding issues or questions that they want us to address that evening. I know they're probably not meeting before the 22nd. So, Becky?
I received a question today, or 3 questions about one topic from Miriam. But I think, proactively asking if they have more so we have a chance to prepare would be a good idea.
All right, great. Is that something that you feel would be addressed before the meeting next week? There are questions for you today, or are we putting that on the list?
She said the question she's asking me, she wants ahead of their meeting on the 22nd.
Oh, I see.
It's in relationship to the enforcement order and the mowing of the lawns.
Okay. All right. I will get in touch with Miriam then and just say, is there anything else we would like?
Right.
You open that door.
No surprises.
I want to hear.
Okay. All right. So I think we have, is there any other town administrator updates, Becky?
I just had one quick one. We had a phone call from a person who is interested in doing marijuana cultivation in Shutesbury and requested a hosting agreement. And in contact with our town council, this is a very tough time to provide a hosting agreement because all the laws just changed in the last couple of months. So I have not yet been able to respond to him with the ordinary sample host agreement that our town council has. But once she updates it for all of her communities, I should be able to get him a draft copy, which I of course will give to the select board ahead of sending to him.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Here comes the storm.
Oh, it's hitting on us.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
wild.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah. Okay. So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I think that's a good idea. I so moved.
Before we lose power.
Right?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to all
you.
the folks who
Thank
came
you.
this evening. Nice to see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.